The story of an incredible migration. I am Aprajita, Program Officer for Team Nature Connect at WWF India. This webinar is being conducted under the 6th edition of the Dragonfly Festival, DFF 23. The Dragonfly Festival is an annual event initiated by WWF India in 2018 in collaboration with BNHS. DFF started off as a citizen science initiative aimed at studying and protecting wetlands in Delhi. But during the pandemic, we decided to make it a pan India event and started a lot of fun virtual sessions. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to the expert for today's session. Welcome, Dr. Sujith. Dr. Sujith V. Gopalan is an executive and founding member of the Society for Ordonate Studies, SOS. He has always been passionate about wildlife and fascinated about animal behavior. And this has translated into quite an illustrious career of over 15 years with roles ranging from a lecturer, researcher, and scientific author. Apart from SOS, he also finds time to volunteer as a conservation biologist and resource person for multiple NGOs and government departments. A few rules for the participants before I hand over the stage to our expert. Please stay on mute. You may use the Q&A section or raise hand option in case you have doubts. We request you to keep the videos off to ensure good connectivity. Please do not annotate. And most importantly, enjoy the session. Over to you, Dr. Gopalan.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Parajita. Good evening, everybody. Like Parajita said, I'm part of an organization called Society for Ordinate Studies. It's an NGO which has been working in Trivandrum, Kerala. Like this, our work has been largely focused on Kerala only. Only recently we stepped out into Tamil Nadu in some parts doing work. This NGO is entirely formed for conservation of ordinates, and the works are all related to ordinates only. We don't focus on any other formal groups. Like we started in 2019, though formally we started in 2019. Before that also we were working here in Kerala. From some 2020, we have been a state partner for WWF State Office here in Kerala, partnering for this Dragonfly Festival. But since 2021, we have been doing it in the national level. We have been also coordinating and associating with WWF, partnering with WWF on this Dragonfly Festival. And I think it's a very good platform for ordinates, people to identify and learn ordinates. And it has been going very well here in Kerala also, and also in the national level. So I'm very happy to be part of this program. And today we are going to talk about one of the interesting dragonfly species. Maybe it's not so beautiful compared to other species that we find here, but apart from this beauty, it has many other things which makes it more fascinating. So I'll right away go to my slides, share my slides, and let's see. Hope the slides are, is it visible?
Yes, Dr.
Yes. Okay, yeah, very good. So today we are going to speak about this particular dragonfly, the globe skimmers, and now I understand that it's not a something hidden thing. Everybody knows it is a migratory species of dragonfly, and this makes it the most fascinating. So we are being attracted to dragonflies for many facts, starting from their color, their behavior, their importance in ecology. All those things makes it attracted to this particular species. But there are certain other facts which are not much open to people about dragonflies, because they, as if you know, we have been largely focusing on larger mammals and some birds, and then into certain insects like butterflies. Only recently we started focusing on dragonflies and started studying it. And it was a great thing that WWF, an NGO like International Status NGO like WWF entered into this one. So it has gone into a wider range of audience, and people have started understanding it at a greater level. So now, today we'll just look at what is this dragonfly globe skimmer is all about. What is it? What is it so important to us to understand its migratory cycle? So we all know, we all have been, as a human beings, have been fascinated by migration since long. We have all been looking into migrations, and everybody know what migration is. Also, we know not ask a question and get an answer from you. Like we all know, there is a seasonal movement for animals. Seasonal movement from what one region to another, and much of the migration occur because of some interesting facts, like for in search of food or to avoid, like we know the bird migration is largely for avoiding extreme climatic conditions in north region, so they come out for the wintering grounds into the southern hemispheres. And there are certain species which also migrate for breeding. So we know that these are some of the major things that drive migration and all. But also there are certain other factors which we don't know why they migrate in a particular route, what makes them migrate in a particular route, and what drives migration in them, what is the change or in environment or whatever thing that triggers this migration. There are a lot of studies yet to come on many faunal groups to better understand this migration. So even at birds, there are certain areas which we don't understand what triggers migration, or what is the imprint in its brain that triggers migration to a bird or an animal and all. So when we first think about migration, the first faunal group that comes to our mind is always birds. We know about bird migration. We have been studying it. All nature enthusiasts start with birding, and then that they just go into other faunal groups. Maybe people are largely interested in mammals and birds largely. So we know about this bird migration, and we know the largest migrating bird is the Arctic tern, which is known to migrate from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere, some 40,000 kilometers each. There are other species which are just behind, like the great snail, bar-tailed godwits, penguins, and the other one species that is written here is Amur falcon. We know that Amur falcon also has a yearly migratory pattern. It starts from Amur in Russia, goes over the Himalayas, lands in Nagaland, and then from a funnel shape, it spreads across the Indian subcontinent. And from the Indian subcontinent, it travels over the Indian Ocean to Africa, and then there is a return migration. So this is the migration that happens within the Indian subcontinent itself. So that is an interesting thing about bird migration. We lot like this is the migratory season for us here in India. So we all go out for birding to search for migratory birds. We try to. There's a lot of applications and other way by which we document bird migration to understand what is the migration and all, and how is the migration good, what time it is starting, what time it is ending, and all. So a lot of recording work for bird migration is happening here in India now, and we have a good database for these birds overall over the time. Second thing we understand about, we like as a child, I also used to watch this National Geographic, Animal Planets, and other interesting channels that puts on videos on this mammal migration and other interesting faunal groups. Like we know about this wild beast migration in Africa that happens over a long distance, between 1.5 million of wild beasts and some zebras and other other species also join this great migration. We know about Caribbean migration in North America. There is a migration for humpback whales where they travel large distance relying on their fat reserves. There are migrations of birds. So mammal migration is also known to some extent. But then we also know there is this migration of some other faunal groups like the fishes in like Atlantic salmon and Pacific salmon. They are also known to migrate from oceans to rivers and back to and through. That is entirely for breeding purpose. Now, the much known migration of any insect group is that of monarch butterflies. So we know about this migration. There's millions of monarch butterflies that travel from Canada to Mexico each year, and they come back also. They travel some 4,800 kilometers in each direction. I mean, to and fro, they travel some 4,800 kilometers, and we know there is lots of roosting, and it is not one generation that transfers through to Canada to Mexico. There are many generations that come support in the between. There is also records of migration of butterflies in India, like the blue tiger migration is there. There are some groups of people here, NGOs, who study blue tiger migration in Kerala, and it has also been an interesting phenomena to understand this blue tiger. Apart from these, there is very little known of this migration in the insect group. like I would like to ask you, are you aware of any other insect migrations? I think there is only very few other insect migrations which is well known to us. But there is something much fascinating in this insect world that is more fascinating than any bird migration or mammal migration. It is migration of this dragonfly, which we have been looking about. This is a video actually just picturized from Parambiculam Tiger Reserve. It's over the Parambiculam Lake there, and it's a reservoir, Parambiculam Reservoir. I picturized this in 2017 using my mobile camera. So bear with me with the quality of the video. But it would be interesting to see what is the number of this Pandala flavescens that is congregating over this Parambiculam Tiger Reserve at the time of October in Parambiculam at that time. Just have a look. So that was this dragonfly species called globe skimmer. Scientifically, we call them as Pandala flavescens. This species was formally described in 1798 by Fabricus. He described the species. So it was one of the earlier insect species properly described. And just to understand the classification of this organism, these are all, just kingdom Animalia is there, but the class is Insecta. And order is Ordonata. We know all ordonate species comes under the order Ordonata. It's named after the strong mandibles and maxillas that these ordonates have for biting other insects and prey. So that way they're called Ordonata. Stronger teeth it means. And you know there is two infra orders for Ordonata or suborders for Ordonata. One is Anisoptera. Anisoptera means it is dragonflies, and there is another group called Zygoptera, which is damselflies. And Anisoptera are a little more stout, wings are spread on resting. And you have the Zygoptera, which has very needle-like tail, wings are folded on resting. So these two subgroups are available. And our dragonfly, the globe skimmer Pandala flavescens, fall under dragonfly Anisoptera, suborder Anisoptera. And they belong to one of the family called Libulidae. It is one of the widespread and most recently evolved and much evolved family group called Libulidae. And if you look at any of the population or species diversity of dragonfly anywhere, much of the dragonflies falls under the Libulidae family. There's one of the family which has many diverse species in that. And formally it is called as Pandala flavescens. This is for just your understanding where the classifications organism for. Now, there is the Pandala. When you understand Pandala flavescens, the Pandala is genus and flavescens is the species. And Pandala, the genus, has another species called Pandala hymenae, which is called spot-winged glider, which is found in North America and certain areas of there where our Pandala flavescens are not seen. So Pandala group has two species, Pandala flavescens, which is more the widespread, and Pandala hymenae, which is limited to the northern part of North America. Okay. Now, why is Pandala flavescens? When you look at the picture, it's not a much beautiful dragonfly. It's not. We have many beautiful dragonflies like stream rubies. We have this stream glories. We have here in Kerala, we have a species of dragonfly called Meristica sapphire. These are all very beautiful dragonflies. Compared to that, Pandala is not much of that attractive compared to these dragonflies. But still, this is the insect group that has fascinated many scientists. And recently, starting from 2009, we have a lot of publications that are focusing on their migration, their behavior, what makes them adapted to migration and all. So this is all because of this particular behavior of this insect, which means it is migratory species. So Pandala in Latin, it says Pandala flavescens. Pandala means all wings. It's all about wings. And flavescens means it's yellowish. As if you see the dragonfly, it's a migratory species and it's yellowish color. And it is said that this is the most abundant dragonfly species compared to all others. It is widespread and most abundant. And it is believed that it has the entire population you see around the globe, it is a single gene pool. It doesn't have much species in there. I put a question mark over there because there is a recent study where from some eastern parts, in an isolated island, which they say there is some isolation, some speciation going on. in that particular gene pool. That's what I put a question mark. But normally we believe that all the Pandala flavescens that you see around the globe are of similar gene pool. They don't have, because they fly around and interbreed with each other, so maintain a single gene pool. So, and second interesting thing is that like all other dragonflies, they feed on mosquitoes, winged ants, termites, and other aerial phytoplanktons and planktons. So this is the feed for much of the dragonflies. And we know people usually believe earlier that dragonflies feeds on honey, nectars, and all, but which was actually wrong, because they like to perch on a isolated something that projects out. Because they want to hunt insects which is flying in air. They don't try to pick up insects from branches or twigs or leaves and all that are sitting, but rather they go for a flight and pick up from they have the legs like a basket. So they basket the flies that fly around with the swift movement, because their eye and wing coordination is quite good. And this is an obligatory migrant. They trans-oceans and trans-Himalaya. They goes across the oceans, and they are also known to travel across the Himalayas, which is make them as interestingly. And this is a multi-generational migrant. So it is not like one species or one individual migrates from this one place to another, but it is known to migrate from multiple generations. So there is something interesting what triggers this migration from one generation to another. So that makes it more fascinating. Now, let's see why are does called all those names come up: globe skimmer, globe wanderer, and wandering glider. These are the common names by which this Pandala flavescens is seen. And this is the distribution map of Pandala flavescens. Here you can see, like you see, it is distributed worldwide, almost worldwide. And this is the earlier map, but we have also tried to study Pandala flavescens, and we have records from northern areas also. That we believe that it is not seen in Europe, but there is records for us from Europe, and we also have some records from Japan and other areas and northern sides of Japan also. So it is more or less more like compared, excluding the Antarctic area and all areas, we have this distribution for Pandala flavescens. Right. Now, one interesting thing that everybody should be looking into is that how and where do they migrate to, and how is that they migrate, because they are already widespread, and where do they migrate to? This is one of the interesting things. So basically they migrate to everywhere. There are a lot of migratory areas, but one of the interesting migratory area that we focus on is from India to Africa. So this is the primary migratory route, which everybody, a lot of studies has gone through and everybody has been focusing on. So there was a study which was done by Indian Institute of Technology in Kharagpur. This came up as a publication, where they say that they did an energetic calculation of this Pandala flavescens. And they understand that Pandala flavescens can endure a flight of 90 hours at a stretch. It's not they sit and rest in between and travel as such, but they can go in one go for 90 hours at a stretch, and they can maintain a speed for some 4.5 to 5 meters per second. So this was one of the interesting things. Such a small dragonfly, it's not like a larger bird or anything, but it can travel such a long distance with such a good speed. And that was one of the things which made people more fascinated into this one. So when we see the migration, I understand that much of the people or natural enthusiasts around this world have seen Pandala flavescens, because it hardly misses anybody's eye, because they come in large numbers and they also disappear at some point of time. But we always remember that there is some little amount of number of Pandala flavescens always somewhere around us. It's not like they totally entire species migrates out from our continent and goes to other, but always there is some small numbers around us. So that is why that makes it more common species. So when you start understanding the migration, it is believed that they migrate. We will start from the returning migration from India to Africa. Here, this migration starts in October actually. So if you look at Kerala coast, Karnataka coast, and in Tamil Nadu in October, November time, you have the most number of dragonflies flying around the open areas. Like they will be seen over the lakes, over the paddy fields, over grounds, and other areas which are open spaces. So in October, you'll see large number of congregations or swarms of this Pandala flavescens, and they are actually going to travel across the Indian Ocean to Africa. So here, this migration, they don't travel at a single stretch, but they have some stopovers in between. They stop over in Maldives, they also stop over in Seychelles. And there may be species also which don't stop over in Maldives or either in Seychelles also. But normally these two stopovers are well known. There is stopovers in Maldives and Seychelles, and then they reach Africa. So if you take the timeline, by October, November, we have large number of Pandala flowers seen on the side of beaches, over the grounds, over the paddy fields, and all other open areas. And by December, all this number has much of them might be migrated over the Indian Ocean to Africa. So in October, they start seeing this one in because the first batch might have traveled. In October, early or late October, they see this in Maldives. By November, it arrives in Seychelles, and by December, a good number has reached back in Africa, East African area. So this is one migratory route that they go. Not the migratory, this is the migratory route to India to Africa. This is how they go. But on the return side, they have a non-stop journey from across Africa to India. So for that they have the support of the monsoon winds. So here they have little support, but on the way back, because our southwest monsoon comes from May to June, and they reach the Kerala coast here. The first coast to touch it is the monsoon to touch is the Kerala coast. They come up with the monsoon winds. So here, like on their onward journey to India, they have the support of this monsoon winds, and they travel directly from Africa to India. So there is no stopover because much of them they don't have to fly. Much of them are carried by the monsoon winds to Kerala coast. Now, how do they travel? This is also interesting. They don't travel at the altitude of what you see, but they travel at an altitude from 1,000 meters to some 2,000 meters. They lift up into the air with this thermal uplift in our area. They lift up into the 1,000 to 2,000 meters high, and from there, the monsoon winds carry them across the ocean to India or Africa or wherever they find. And when we also understand that when they reach India by early June, they start from India, Kerala coast, they start spreading to Indian subcontinent. They start traveling across Indian subcontinent, and some of them are also known to migrate across the Himalayas also. That we'll take up later. So when they come to Kerala coast, they also spread up to India, and they go along with the monsoon winds and spread across the Indian subcontinent. And then by the retrieving monsoon that we start in October, November, that they start coming back to the Kerala coast, and from Kerala coast, they again travel back by December to African coast. It's also believed that December is the best time for them to travel. The success rate is quite high in December. There is also a study which says that if they travel by the time of December, that they have the most success rate. And they don't travel, that there's not one individual that travels from Africa to India and spread across India, come back, and then from India to again by Africa. They say there is 4 generations involved for this one circuit to complete. And it is believed that this one circuit from Africa to India, spreading over India and coming back, it is 18,000 kilometers. And 18,000 kilometers is a record, and there's a non-stop record for, like, if you consider the size of this species, that is the longest non-stop journey for any creature on Earth. So this one thing is one that makes the journey of Pandala fluorescens more interesting to us. So this is the migratory cycle, which also people have studied the most, and the behavior and other things associated with this also being studied. There's a lot of studies yet to come what drives this migration, but we believe that they are chasing the monsoon. They come with the southwest monsoon and go back with the northwest monsoon. Okay. Now, how does this understanding of this migratory route begin? It's all about, because there was a marine biologist called Charles Anderson who was based in Maldives. He was studying this coral reefs and marine biology, marine organisms in Maldives. And if you see Maldives, it has some 298 square kilometer area, but this 298 square kilometer area is also split into small islands. Okay, and there are small islands. And what is interesting in these islands is that they are all surrounded by sea, and they don't have water, fresh water. We all understand that dragonflies require fresh water for breeding. Not only breeding, their larval life is entirely based on fresh water. If the water is contaminated or there is no fresh water, dragonflies cannot survive. So it was interesting to him to see that by early November, October, late October, early November, he has a large swarm of this Pandala flavescens arriving in Maldives. From he didn't understand where it arrived from, so he first observed it in 1983. Then, but when he inquired about the people around in Maldives, they understood that the people are well known about the scenario or the phenomena of this large number of Pandala flavescens swarms coming in Maldives at that time, by the time of October, November, December. Then the following years also he saw this one, and somehow this idea made him made very interesting things to me, because he understand that there was no fresh water for dragonflies to breed, but still it comes in Maldives, because Maldives is sandy like thing. The moment it rains, all the water goes into the sandy area, and they don't have any freshwater pools or anything for breeding. So it was interesting to him to still note that a lot of dragonflies comes to Maldives. But after he made some inquiries, he started inquiring into India, its counterparts in India, in Bangalore and many parts of India, Kerala, Trivandrum also he had inquired. So he was said he got the idea from that people in India and also seeing large numbers in this particular point of time. Like we are seeing it in early October and all. We have it here in Bangalore, Chennai, Trivandrum, these area. We have this in the numbers also. So after he collected a basic information from 1996 to 2008, he went on with the proper documenting when and what time, what numbers the species is seeing, and what is the wind condition and other data. He started trying to incorporate this data and try to build up a study at that time. Okay, so then after he analyzed all this data in 2009, he published this data of Pandala flavescens migration and he presented it. And then the world came to know that this fascinating phenomena of Pandala flavescens migration is happening from India to Africa. So previous to that, there was records of dragonfly migrations, like Corbett in 2004 has mentioned about some dragonfly migration. After 2006 also, there were papers which mentions about dragonfly migration. But there is no mention about this cross-ocean migration. The cross-the-ocean migration was the first time reported in 2009. Okay, trans-ocean migration of dragonflies was reported in 2009. And that made it the most interesting thing. When this first came out for the first time, then it was an eye-opener. And then after that, a lot of research has been focused on this interesting area. So, okay. So see, this is one of the interesting thing. He did a proper identification of how many dragonflies comes every year, what is the time it comes, how it coincides with the wind frequency over the time, and what is the other species that comes at that point at time. So he found a correlation that when dragonfly species were more, there was also more species of migratory birds at Maldives at that point of time, and that was interesting. And we could see that when the wind velocity was higher, the dragonfly population was reduced, because the wind is the one which carries the dragonfly from Maldives to Seychelles area and then to the Africa. So this was a part of his study, and an interesting observation of his that made people understand that it is the monsoon winds that carries this dragonfly. The most monsoon ones is the one that carries this dragonfly. Okay. So it's not just that. SOS also had done some studies on this Pandala flavescens. This is fascinated us also. We tried to make a scientific, citizen science movement called Pan Pandala Tract, and we also got some interesting observations. So you could see that this was an observation that we had in November, where you could see there is a lot of reports coming from the south, and then we look at the northern area, the numbers are quite less. And if you look at the legends here, you could see that this one in blues are less in number, less than 20 species. So in November, by November, there is some species, some individuals of Pandala flavescens left in the northern side, but majority are concentrated in the southern side. Okay, so by November, all has come back to the southern end of by the retreating monsoon. And we interestingly, if you look at, people say there's less report from Europe and all, but we had some good numbers reported from Uzbekistan, and also after that also we had report. And interestingly, we also found that dragonfly population were there in migrating from West Africa to East Africa also. So studies like this require large collaboration, large number of people to greatly involved to understand the migration, because it is It is something that moves in large numbers, and we need to know how many numbers are moving at what point of time, what is the wind velocity of the time, what is the weather condition of that time. If all this data comes up, we could easily understand what is the proper migratory route and what is the numbers at each point of time across the continent. Okay. Now, let's understand what makes this dragonfly, what adaptation it has that makes it to travel this long distance. Because one thing I would like to remind you is that it's not just Pandala flavescens that is migrating. We have other species of Tremia, like Tremia bacillar is migrating. Some say Ryothemis variegata has a small amount of migration, and as epinephrine as a non-to-migrate. So there are some species which migrate. Co-migrants are there along with Pandala flavescens, but they are not seen in such large number. We are not quite sure how long also they migrate also. So there are other species of dragonflies that also co-migrate with Pandala flavescens. So what is interesting for this one is that this is like, if you look at Pandala flavescens, it's hardly a 5 centimeter long dragonfly, and has a wingspan of some 7.2 to 8.4 centimeters. That is the wingspan of this. So it is a very tiny insect. But this tiny insects can attain a speed of 4.5 meter to 5 meter per second. And interestingly, the ability for them is that they understand that rather than flying at the low altitude, if you can go up to the higher altitude and there is stronger winds, like if you go to 100,000 to 2,000 meter above sea level or the height, the wind speed is quite good and they can travel. And interestingly, where there is thermal upland is there in island areas, they maintain a height of some 2 point. They are seen at such low heights of 2.5 meters also. And this Pandala flavescens also has a record of being the highest flying dragonfly because it is known to travel across Himalayas. There's a record of that, which is some 6,200 meters above sea level. And it's compared to its body size, it's the longest non-migratory, non-stop migratory species of dragonfly known to date. Now, this is the record which identifies it to travel across Himalayas, because Onsen in 2021 conducted a research in Japan using some isotopes of hydrogen. This is a bit high-end research. And he understood that all these dragonflies that are seen earlier in Japan, that comes from India, Tibet, Plateau, and northern China and Korea. So that is the migratory path of this dragonfly. They migrate across the Himalayas over to Japan from there. So after that, the whatever species individuals he collected, he knew that it was from nearer place and recently emerged dragonfly emerged individuals. So earlier, whatever came was immigrants. They were from northern India and from across Himalayas, Tibetan, northern central China and Korea and all. So this is only possible if they cross the Himalayas, like from 6,200 meters from the sea level. But it is not the first record. There was a record in 1974 from Hindu Kush area, where it was recorded that a large swarm of dragonfly was flying across this Himalayas. But unfortunately, it could not be identified which was the species that traveled across. But now we know this is the species of dragonfly that travel across this Himalayas. Okay. Now, what does we'll just look at the adaptation also. What adaptation is there for this dragonfly species, which makes them which makes them adapted to fly such long distance. Like we know there is if you look at other dragonfly species, they all have some habitat, like they are seen in certain altitudes, they are seen in certain very specific habitat or microhabitat conditions. But Pandala flavescens, one adaptation for them is that they don't require any specific habitat. So they are normally, if you see Pandala flavescens, we all see much of the time it will be flying around. So you see large numbers over open spaces. So it could be paddy fields, playgrounds, seashores, river sites, sites of reservoirs where open space. And much of the time they'll be flying around these water bodies also. They fly around water bodies just because of the fact that in the early morning, other insect larvae hatch out and they fly over to the water body. So for feeding them, then normally you see large swarms of this Pandala flavescens flying over this water body. So second adaptation for them is that, there are dragonflies which breeds in torrential streams. There are dragonfly species which breeds in like some stagnant water bodies like lakes, rivers. Many microhabitat conditions are there where they tries to breed and lay their eggs. But for Pandala fly vessels, they can breed in temporary water bodies, like a newly formed pool of water on the roadside, over the terrace, or even they identify the reflection of water. That's why you may identify when you park your vehicle or you're traveling over car, you can see a dragonfly species coming and touching, hitting his abdomen against your glasses of cars, bonnets of cars, and all. Just because they identify them, because they know that they just need a mere reflection of water for them to lay eggs. So they breed in these temporary pools. Because when it is a rainy season, because they move with the monsoon rain, and when there's a rainy season and there is temporary pool, it will be maintained for some, at least for some 30-40 days, and that's enough for them to breed and hatch out into a new individual. And they are known to prefer the traveling with its moist winds, because it is a monsoon traveler, so it travels with the moist winds. And there is also some idea that even if you look at Maldives in November, that coincides with some intertropical convergence zone. So there is no wind pressure in lower areas, but higher areas there is enough wind for them to travel. So that is one of the adaptations for this Pandala fly. Again, when it look at the breeding behavior, they fly in tandem because dragonflies breed in a particular way. They have a breeding ritual or a way of mating in that way. First, that the males hold the females by their head with the help of their abdominal appendages, and then that position is called tandem position, as the one you see in this figure. That is tandem position. And then once this is whole, male catches a female with the head, the tandem position is formed, and they are ready to mate. And then they form a wheel position where the mating takes place in this position. And again, after the mating, they release this wheel position and go back to the tandem position. And the male remains connected to the female with the tandem position, and the female dips the abdomen into the temporary formed pools of water, wherever it is there, on the terrace, on the roadside, wherever it is there. And they deposit some 500 to 2,000 eggs at a time. So that's a large number of eggs deposited in the temporary pool. So if anybody understanding dragonfly breeding all knows that dragonflies which deposit egg directly into water by touching the abdomen, they deposit spherical eggs, spheroid eggs in spheroid in shape. Eggs will be normally in spherical in shape. So those eggs will be normally spherical in shape, because that helps the eggs to be deposited into water without much damage. So all those dragonflies which directly put their egg into water has the spherical shaped eggs. And this guarding behavior is that these dragonflies are very aggressive. There are instances if the male lets off the female to lay eggs individually without guarding her, the other male may catch her and remove the fertilized eggs. There is also records of incidents of there. So in that, you can see dragonflies exhibit different types of guarded types of egg laying. Either there will be a contact guarding like the tandem guarding you have seen here, or there will be a non-contact guarding. So this is a video. It's not playing it. Okay. See, this is a contact guarding, where this is Prodacinura verticalis, a species of damselfly. So here the male has held the female by the head, and it is egg laying is in progress. It's not egg laying; they are taking a rest in between egg laying. But here they deposit the egg not directly into water, but they deposit the egg into the plant particles. So they have a and their abdominal appendages as a small blade-like structure, which makes a hole into this vegetations and put an egg into that. For individuals which puts eggs into the vegetations, these eggs are more cylindrical, which point at ends to each side, not spherical eggs, because that makes them easy to insert into this vegetations. Okay. Now, other than the breeding behavior, we'll look at the life cycle also. So we know now that they breed in temporary form, pools formed by just after the rain. So they are traveling with monsoon and they breed in temporary pools that are formed after rain. And interestingly, the larval life of this species is that from the moment to deposit the egg, from larvae to the adult, to getting back into the adult stage, it takes hardly 38 to 65 days maximum. 38 days is comparatively a very less life cycle time for a dragonfly. We have dragonflies in India like Epithermis maria. We have other species which requires one complete year to breed, and there are even dragonflies which is known to take 2 or 3 years to emerge out of this larval life. So the larval life is the one which is prolonged for much of the species. But when it's for Pandala flavescens, since it is traveling one which travels with the monsoon, it has adapted to switch on from an leg to the other stage by just from 38 to 65 days. And this is one of the shortest life cycle described for any dragonfly species. The larvae is comparatively enough size of 24 to 26 centimeter long. And in the water form also, in the water medium also, they feed on other larvae, like they feed on mosquito larvae, tiny fishes, larvae of other crustaceans, and other harmful insects. They feed on all those types of larvae. This is what the larvae of the Pandala flavescens dragonfly is. And the image given is the larvae of wandering glider. The Pandala flavescens larvae is images given. Now, another one of the interesting behavior that is shown by this dragonfly is the communal roosting. We understand that they fly in large numbers over these paddy fields and other open areas. But once evening is set, they go in for roosting. And normally you can see that the sides of the shrubs, grasses and all, you can see Pandala flavescens, they roost together. They roost on either on a single glass blade or on a small twig. They'll be aligning to each other and roosting as such. And this is the behavior that this is shown by Pandala flavescens. It is recorded in Potamarcha congener, in Tolimus thilagra, Bradinopyga geminata. These all dragonfly species show this communal roosting behavior. It's known all over these species of dragonflies to do this normally. And many theories has been set up so as to understand why communal roosting is there. One is they believe that they reduce the nocturnal predation. It helps reduce the nocturnal predation in dragonflies because they'll be in the roosting stage and there will be other active animals, faunal groups, which normally hunt for these insects. So this is another one of the behaviors shown by Pandala flies. Now, we'll just wind up by saying why is this important to understand the Pandala flavescens migration and what their behavior, or why is they important to us each time, because they are such one single species but such large numbers. How do they make an impact on the ecosystem we have? See, every organism, maybe it's a dragonfly, a bird, butterfly, or any other faunal organism, they are part of this food chain or food web, where they play a role as a predator and a prey. Either they may be a predator or prey, or they may have both these roles as a predator and prey, as we have this for the dragonfly. We know that Pandala flavescens and other dragonfly species, they feed on a variety of insect larvae and insects. Like they feed on many pests, they feed on mosquitoes. They, as larvae in water, they feed on many of the mosquito larvae and other harmful insects larvae. So they help us in a large way in that side. And interestingly, all the previous studies have recorded that Pandala, there is co-migrants. There are predators that migrate along with this dragonfly over the time. Like we have this Amu falcons, we have this cuckoos, pied cuckoo, we have Eurasian roller, you have Eurasian hobie, and many other birds, like even this our bee eaters. They migrate along with this Pandala flavescens. And they migrate at the same height as of the Pandala flavescens, like from some 2000 to 2000 meter above the sea level. So they migrate at the same height and they migrate along with this Pandala flavescens. So Pandala flavescens becomes a food for these birds for migration. As if I said before, Amu falcons migrate from Amu to Africa and back, and that on the way, this Pandala flavescens is one of the food that they rely upon over the migratory route. And we know that this Pandala flavescens and any other dragonflies, they play a large amount in controlling the pest of the agriculture and the area, because they're flying over this paddy fields, they consume large number of pests. So they do a ecosystem service in that way also. When you look at dragonfly, we already mentioned that dragonflies breeds in fresh waters. So they are a good indicator of freshwater ecosystem. So if you find a good population of dragonfly in anywhere, it should understand that there is some good fresh water available for them to breed in this. So if you could properly monitor the population and status of dragonflies, you could understand the status of the health of the ecosystem that they live among them. Because it's not just Pandala flowers. You look at a wide range of dragonflies. They have many microhabitat. I don't say they have habitat preference. You look at a pond, much of the areas of the pond, there will be many microhabitat, and each microhabitat is a preferred area for a dragonfly because they will be either having a specific breeding mechanism or a specific area where they lay eggs, specific microhabitat conditions for them to breed and lay eggs. So that all makes them the best indicator of an ecosystem because you can see multiple, you can analyze multiple ecosystem by looking at different species of dragonflies. So I think we had a very brief session on wandering gliders. I thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Dr. Gopalan. Thank you, everyone. We have one question here. How many generations of globe skimmers is required to complete the migration?
Yeah, it is believed that it requires four generations of this Pandala flavescens to complete one cycle from India to Africa and back to Africa and back to India. It's four generations actually.
Okay. I was seeing someone's hand raised. Does anyone else have any questions? Yeah. So the next question is, birds can be tracked. How are insects and their generations tracked? This is quite an interesting one.
Yeah, they have actually tried to understand this because there's a recent studies from Japan where they did some hydrogen isotype isolations from these animals to identify where they formed and where they came from actually. So that is the only record which properly says how to track generations and what is the this and all. And also you can look at the condition of their wings to identify the status of the age, or you can return age of this dragonflies.
Yeah, so we have another question. Thank you for answering that one. Is Pantala tracking an app? Is it region specific or can it be used by others as well?
No, it's not. It's not an app actually, but it can be opened in your browser. There is a link. If you could have this code scanned, it will open up a form, Google form like thing, where you could. There will be some drop down menus where they'll ask what is the number of dragonfly you see, what is the area. It will automatically mark the GPS location, and then you could enter your name or email address something, and then you could put some comment, and it is automatically sent. Not an app, but it's a form like thing which opens up. And it can be used by anyone, yeah, because we have records coming up from Africa, from Uzbekistan, and many places, from Maldives, from Seychelles, and all. So it can be done by anyone.
Thank you, sir. Another question is, so the Pantala that starts the migration is not the insect that completes the journey. Its offsprings complete it, right? That's the question.
Yeah, it is true. May not be the insect that started, the individual insect that started the journey from Africa or India that completed the journey in Africa or India also. It may be its next generation or the next generation.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I think that those are the only questions that we had. Thank you, everyone. We hope you enjoyed the session as much as we did. Dragonflies are truly marvelous insects, and while the phenomenon of migration in itself is quite fascinating, I'm sure learning about dragonfly adaptations, behaviors, and migration was quite mind blowing. And this is the last month for this year's Dragonfly Festival, but we still have a few more interesting sessions and competitions lined up. So Ode to Odonate's a poetry competition is currently ongoing. Next week we have an expert talk about wetlands through the eyes of a dragonfly by Yuan. We are also sharing a few interesting posts about odonates on our Instagram. So do follow us there. We'll be sharing the details about the account. And please feel free to email us your queries at edu@wwfindia.net. Thank you once again. Thank you, Dr. Gopalan.
Thank you.
See you again
Thank you.
soon.
Bye. See you.